My name is Brandon Spriggs, and I was born in 1990.
My name is Tamia Thompson, and I was born in 2001.
I was born in 1919.
My name is Eugene Roderick Rock Newman. I was born in 1952.
My name is Alex, and I was born in 2008.
Camille Exum, 1968.
My name is Willow, and I was born in 2004.
My name is Justin, and I'm 8 years old.
My name is Kimberly. I was born in 1979, and I grew up in Prince George's County.
I grew up in Lanham, Maryland.
I grew up in Lewisdale. It's right in Hyattsville.
I grew up in North Brentwood. It's a little town just north of Washington, D.C., between Brentwood and Hyattsville.
I grew up in Largo, or Upper Marlboro as they call it now.
I grew up in Rossville. My grandfather built a house. That's the reason why they named it Rossville, because he built the first house there.
I grew up on the grounds upon which we are sitting right now. It was Route 1, Box 403, Brandywine, Maryland.
Peppermill Village, Prince George's County.
It was very diverse. At that time, it was, I remember growing up, I had a lot of Trinidadians, Jamaicans, Guyanese, black, white. It was very diverse in that neighborhood.
There's not a nice people, and there's no really robberies. Like, sometimes we leave our stuff out there, and 1 or 2 days later, it's still right there where we left it.
A small, quaint community, very friendly. Families that moved in the community at the same time with children around the same age. So we were all very close, and we all grew up together, and our parents grew up together in a sense as well.
It was quite the rural community. I remember everyone having a garden. I remember a lot of openness and sharing.
Brentwood was an all-white area. North Brentwood was like 99% African-American, or colored, as we would say in those days. Okay.
It was normal, like a normal childhood story, I guess.
All these houses nearby, I don't think anyone had locks on their doors.
Community I was raised in, starting off, it was a lot of younger kids, but people started to move out, and we kind of like the last people to stay. So as I got older, it was just more of an older crowd that moved in.
I can remember Sears, Montgomery Ward.
I used to buy my clothes at Justice or Limited Too or Children's Place.
My mother sewed. We had a foot sewing machine. The pedal on the floor. That's my mother made all my clothes.
Target,
and Walmart.
because it gives me everything I need.
My mom used to shop at Montgomery Ward, which is not around, Hex, which is now Macy's.
We would get stuff from Morton's, from Hex. My mother, in all of her life, she had one credit card, and that was Hex. She didn't trust the mail to make her payment. So every time that the bill came, she would drive up to Hex and pay it in cash.
Shoes are kind of like my thing, so I guess Foot Lockers or Finish Line or any place that had shoes was kind of my favorite store.
I went to an all-segregated black school. It was called Orem Elementary. It's just about 5 or 6 miles from here. And it truly was one of the great experiences of my life.
Our elementary school is fun because we get to do experiments like science experiments and labs, and get to go outside for recess and have free time.
There was an elementary school right there in North Brentwood, which I attended for 6 years. And after that, my schooling went to junior high school, which was in Lakeland, which was about 10, 15 miles away.
The class sizes were about 20 kids in a class. And I didn't really have the multiple classes, right? We have like 3 third grades and 15 first grades and stuff like that. No, it was just single. So I liked it. I didn't really have a problem. But then at 7 years old, you like everything.
The first room was from the first grade to the fourth grade. And then the next room was from the fourth grade to the seventh. And my teacher was Mrs. Williams and Mrs. Smith. And they stayed with our family. So, we had to walk to chalk.
I went to Randolph Village Elementary School, then Kettering Elementary School, Stephen Decatur Junior High, and Crossland High School. Classes were mixed in terms of racial makeup.
I went to high school 2 years and I didn't go anymore because I worked with my mother doing domestic work.
The demographic at my school is like African American.
Well, before I made it to public school, the class size was fairly small. The demographics were mixed quite evenly. Until I got to public school, then it was the complete opposite. It was mostly African American, and the classes were like 50 people in each class.
At Northwestern, I was the only African American student. There was no violence, but there was no acceptance, and things were very, controlled. The principal of that school, he was in charge. And, nobody wanted to, make any waves.
We were taught that not only were we as good as anybody else, or could be as good as anybody else, but that we had to prepare ourselves to be smarter than. That life wasn't really necessarily fair. So we had to go the extra mile. That foundation, that caring, that love that came out of that community of people who had to do for themselves really gave me the kind of foundation and an understanding where I could compete against anybody in the world.
I was the only person on my street who had a basketball court, so everybody used to come down and play basketball at my house. We used to play football outside in the street. I don't know, we were like the type of kids that just made up games, so pretty much whatever we had outside, we'd make a game with it.
Tag, sometimes we race each other, and like sometimes we get on the swings and we race to see who can go the highest.
Things like hopscotch, but people still do that now, and jumping rope, which people still do.
Double Dutch. I was a double Dutch queen. I never joined a double Dutch team, but I think I could probably outjump them. Yeah, we were really good.
I was an obsessive lover of sports. First and foremost, baseball was my sport. I tell stories today of when I was 5 years old and a bat boy for the 1957 Brandywine AC Tri-State League Championship baseball team.
When I was really young, I liked going to Greenbelt Mall, going to Jeepers. That was like the place to go when I was younger. Like that was way better than Chuck E. Cheese because Jeepers had an indoor roller coaster.
Play soccer. And we go to a soccer game. Yeah.
And my brother and I shot marble, but he would beat me all the time and I would quit.
We loved to play outdoors, so dodgeball was huge. Kickball was great. We rode our bikes and jumped rope.
My favorite toy probably was, but it was between a basketball and a video game. I mean, before I had the basketball court outside, it was video games. But once that happened, it was like, I'm going outside to play basketball.
There's Skylanders, and there's Pokemon cards.
Barbies. I love Barbies. 40-something Barbies. I did, I love them.
I have my play food that I play with and my Play-Doh.
My favorite toy now is my TV and my phone.
Growing up, it was either Christmas or Thanksgiving. And I know people say Christmas because of the gifts and stuff, but I was there for the food. So it was either Christmas or Thanksgiving. Both of them, it depended on which one the most people came over that year. So if we had more people come over for Thanksgiving, then that year Thanksgiving was my favorite. But if we had more people come over for Christmas, then that year Christmas was my favorite. So unless nobody came over for neither one, then I was a little upset the whole year.
I really can't even say Christmas because I was disappointed a lot because I had big dreams, but my parents didn't have big money.
Christmas.
Christmas. Always love Christmas. Always love the songs, love the decorations, loved all the presents because I was the only girl and I was the youngest.
My mother would shop whatever she could spend. She would shop, but she would never bring it home. She'd leave it next door until Christmas time.
Toys and clothes and shoes and Play-Doh and play food and sometimes jewelry and headbands. Like all that type of stuff, all that type of girly stuff.
Oh yeah, for Christmas, it was this thing, I wanted to get a train set. And I was probably in the second or third grade. I had saved a little bit of money, which I wanted to contribute to Santa some kind of way maneuvering this.
Every Christmas Eve, the block would gather and we would go Christmas caroling, then wind up back at one of the neighbors' homes, and we'd have, hot chocolate and donuts and cake and cookies, and typically one of the dads would play Santa for us when we were young. So those were good times.
My favorite holiday growing up was Christmas, and that was because I like presents, and when I get my presents, it makes me feel happy.
We didn't get a whole lot. And my brother, well, we got shoes, clothes.
I tell you what, I can answer that. No, it was Thanksgiving because we always loved to eat. And everybody that I knew in my sphere of family, friends, influence, everybody's mamas, aunt, and grandmamas could cook. So we loved Thanksgiving.
We pretty much had to stay on the block. And for the most part, the yards were free range, but we had to, of course, ask permission to go into the house, but typically into a neighbor's house, but that typically wasn't a problem, just more to inform where we were.
Back then, you did what mother and father said do.
Mama didn't play a whole lot of that unchaperoned stuff. There was a watchful eye always around.
The older I got, the more I could do. But I remember times where I was really young and it was like, you can't go past the stop sign of the street and you got to be home before the street lights come on. But like my street light came on like 5 minutes before everybody else's street light. So it was a little different.
By the time I got to be about maybe 12 or so, I could venture out and go in parts of town that I didn't normally go into. But I still had to be concerned that a report might get back to my parents or my grandparents that I was seen on a particular street, which, I wasn't supposed to be there.
We had a time limit. We can ride our bikes, but we had to check in every half an hour. So we can go and then come back and check in, and then go and come back and check in. And if after, let's say, for whatever reason, we just decided to go on a trail and did not check in, we would see either our mother or father there right at the park looking for us because we didn't come back and check in.
99.9% is chaperoned. and we can't do anything without them knowing.
We were so obsessed with what we were doing, I don't think we needed a lot of supervision, but the field was right behind us here. What you don't see here now is there was a clothesline here. And it just seemed like all the time when we were playing, my mother was putting clothes on the line or taking clothes off the line. So there were always the watchful eye of adults stayed with us quite a bit.
We used to have a streetcar that runs from Mount Rainier to Laurel down on Main Street. And it was around 10 o'clock we caught the last streetcar back to where we were supposed to get off. And all of a sudden, this 2 horses and these hood men came up beside the streetcar, and we panicked. And Ku Klux Klans, and we panicked. And my mother pushed us down under the seat, and the conductor said to us, he said, "Miss and your 2 children," he said, "if they continue to ride to your stop," he said, "I'm going to keep going." He said, and he was going back to Mount Rainier. He said, and if we have to take you back to Mount Rainier, he said, "we'll see that you get home with your 2 children."
Like me and my mom, like we always have like this one day, and it's called Girls' Day. Like we go to IHOP or something, or go get our nails painted or something. Yeah, like that. That's my favorite thing with mommy. My dad, he gets me anything I want.
Our parents would charter a bus, and in the summers they would take us to King's Dominion and Hershey Park and Busch Gardens and all those places, and they were memorable.
Like before everybody in the neighborhood moved out, all of us like knew each other, and we all like spent a summer like just doing anything outside, whether it was like just running through the neighborhood, playing basketball. Like for some reason we all ended up on the same football team. We played football, so that was kind of really cool. Like everywhere we went, somebody from the neighborhood or my family or something like that was there, and they all knew each other, so everybody was like kind of connected a little bit.
I think Shrove Tuesday was a thing we called it Pancake Day at that time. And so on that day, my mother would sort of indulge me, and not only would I have pancakes for breakfast, but I'd have them for dinner as well. So that was a big deal for me.
Every day we create a new moment to remember. So it's like too many.
I think the first time I did this, I was 11. I snuck out and went through the woods and climbed over the fence. And man, the next thing I know, I was in the crowd, and James Brown and the Fabulous Flames was just getting it. They were getting it.
My neighbor had chickens, and me and one of my buddies, every weekend we would clean the chicken house, and that I think we got 50 cents a piece for that, which for me that was big money.
That summer after I graduated from high school, I came back and worked Explorers Camp at Lake Arbor, and that was pretty fun. I was making $7.33. That was my hourly wage.
And probably my first real job where I was working for someone else was actually cutting tobacco down in Baden, Maryland.
The babysitter, the neighborhood babysitter, always needed help, and I would just go over there. I was too old to be over there. I would just go on my own and just go and help her.
I believe I worked for Park and Planning. I believe that was my first job. And during the summer, at a summer camp, burning up in the sun. Mm-hmm.
All the money that I earned, I would buy shoes. because my parents didn't like my dad's mentality of how many shoes you should have is 3. He's like, you should have a dress pair, a pair of white shoes, and a pair of black shoes. I think that that's not good at all. Like,
I saved it, and I just saved it. I didn't really do much with my money at that young.
Probably shopped some for school and that sort of thing.
I remember we had cool caps and fishnet tops, and we would hitchhike. It was nothing at all. No, wouldn't think anything about getting on 381 Brandywine Road, hitchhiking up to a Branch Avenue, going to Iverson Mall. Iverson Mall was the big deal at the time.
I mean, the malls in PG County, you got PG Plaza, Forestville Mall. I don't know if Iverson Mall is considered PG County.
We had television, of course. There were only 5 or 6 channels, but we had television, radio. When I guess electronic games came out, you know, the handheld ones, that was all the rage. And Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, that was exciting. Atari, of course. And I remember, I think I was in the 10th grade when cable came around. So that was exciting as well. MTV, you know.
We got our water from a spring. We didn't have, and we had cook stove. We didn't have, we had electric, but we had a cook stove. We did our own cooking. My father would go in the woods and get the wood for the stove. You all don't remember that. The irons we had, and he had a certain wood. When we go to iron, we use that wood. And the iron's on the stove. And then after that, after we finished, we had one day to do the ironing. And after that, we go on the regular wood.
iPads, phones, TVs, computers, anything that you name, we have it.
Yeah, things were quite different. There was no telephone in our house until probably in the mid to late 50s. And I mean, we had electricity, though, which was better than some of the places I'd been.
We have iPhones, iPods, Kindles, laptops. We have TVs, a lot.
We always had a TV. We did not have indoor plumbing. We had an outhouse right down there.
I remember when we got our first computer, my parents bought it when I was about in the 4th or 5th grade. And so that's what, like between 9 and 11 years old. I don't remember exactly. And it was a Macintosh, and it stayed in my parents' room because it was not the family computer at first. And we loved it, no matter how slow it was, the processing. And at that time, you had to keep backing up the computer. I remember that. And we didn't have video games. We didn't have Nintendo. So we had a cousin who did, and we used to love going over to their house to get to play the Nintendo, but we never had it in our house. We really did not have electronics.
So part of my dad's job was looking at different types of electronics. It could range from some type of fancy like cooking appliance to a video game to I remember we had like the little small TVs. Our first TVs were like the ones that like people would take in the car if they wanted to watch the game, and it had like an antenna, like a radio. Me and my brother both had I had a green one and he had a blue one.
I used to ride along with my father in his pickup truck. And he used to always say, well, you see that over there right there? I remember when it wasn't nothing but woods. And over here, there wasn't nothing but a whole bunch of trees over there. And now I ride around and see Brandywine Crossing, and there are car dealerships and movies and fancy restaurants and Costco's in Brandywine. I never would have imagined. So, you know, there's been incredible growth that I never really, you know, expected or anticipated.
The county has grown a great deal. When I was a child here, Central Avenue was 2 lanes. Now it's 6, probably more in some places. But the county has just grown a great deal, and I'm sure the best is yet to come.
There's so many homes from point A to point B, as before it used to just be woods. And so with that growth, that means that there's more money coming into the county, there's more things in the county, more people in the county, more affluent people in the county as well.
That to me was kind of like a big turning point in PG County when they started to put up these big houses everywhere in the area, and you started to get a lot more people who had higher incomes moving in, and it kind of made, once that started, it kicked off them building more malls and building more shopping centers, and you started to get more things in different areas just because there was more people who were in the area and there was a lot more money in the area. So people decided, oh, my business can thrive here. So you have a lot more businesses opening up and stuff like that. So it was kind of a chain reaction kind of effect.
The county has a lot of resources, and I really wish that I was, either growing up now or they had the same things back then, because they have so many programs. It's like you can't be idle at all growing up now.
I like being here in this house. Yeah, so I don't want to move ever.
I would hope that Prince George's is not merely viewed as the bedroom community for DC, but it's a place and destination of its own, where people are fully realized and actualized here.
I feel that I'm safe, and I like it.
I think the county is in good shape.